Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the Timothy McVeigh murder case. McVeigh was the main perpetrator of the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. So I'll start with the background of Timothy McVeigh, look at the timeline of the crimes, and then look at the mental health and personality factors. Starting with the background, Timothy McVeigh was born in Lockport, New York on April 23, 1968. His parents divorced in 1978. From the age of 10, he mostly lived with his father. In school and in his neighborhood, he was the target of bullies. He developed an interest in firearms and survivalism. He started stockpiling camping equipment and food in preparation for a communist overthrow of the United States government or nuclear war. So he was kind of afraid of two things there, but both of those are highly unusual for a child, right? Usually you don't see those particular fears in someone who is young. His classmates described him as introverted, odd, socially awkward, and disengaged. Although he was interested in women, he never had a girlfriend and appeared to have difficulty relating to women. After working a few jobs that didn't last, he enlisted in the U.S. Army in May of 1988. His platoon leader was a man named Terry Nichols. The two connected over their paranoid view of the world and their distrust of the government. When McVeigh was serving in Kansas, he befriended an anti-government activist named Michael Fortier. McVeigh was promoted to sergeant. He was a gunner in a Bradley fighting vehicle during the Gulf War, and he earned a Bronze Star. Back in North Carolina, after this, he entered a 21-day assessment to become a Green Beret, but he washed out 2 days into it. He was honorably discharged in December 1991. After this, he started living with his father near Buffalo, New York, and worked as a security guard, making minimum wage. His paranoia intensified as he became more depressed, and he had thoughts of ending his life. He was increasingly concerned over U.S. foreign policy and gun control. He also invested in a number of conspiracy theories involving the government. After the gunfight at Ruby Ridge in 1992, in which an FBI sniper killed an unarmed woman named Vicki Weaver, McVeigh started thinking about an attack on the federal government. In January 1993, McVeigh quit his job, he sold most of his property, and he began living a transient life, visiting gun shows, staying with friends of his from the Army, and taking short-term jobs. February 28, 1993. The ATF attempts to execute a search warrant on the Branch Davidians at the Mount Carmel compound in Waco, Texas. The raid results in the death of 4 federal agents and 6 Branch Davidians. McVeigh traveled to Waco, Texas, and sold bumper stickers with slogans like, "Fear the government that fears your gun." Terry Nichols and McVeigh were watching television at Nichols' farm on April 19, when the government launched an attack against the Branch Davidians. 76 of the Branch Davidians would die. Now moving to a timeline of the crimes, McVeigh, Nichols, and Fortier start to plan the attack in 1994. McVeigh turned his small house in Arizona into a bunker. He started constructing bombs, and he renounced his U.S. citizenship. It appears as though he obtained the recipe for the explosive he would later use in Oklahoma City from a friend who put his degree in chemistry to use by manufacturing methamphetamine. McVeigh also started to use quite a bit of this drug himself. McVeigh started to believe that powerful conspirators were getting ready to take over the world. Fortier and McVeigh trespassed onto Area 51 in July 1994, and 2 months later they traveled to Mississippi because they believed that there was a town there that was the staging area for a United Nations military force. September 1994. Through a series of thefts and purchases, McVeigh and Nichols obtained the materials they need to construct a bomb, including 2 tons of ammonium nitrate. As McVeigh was testing different chemical mixtures, trying to come up with an explosive that would be effective, Fortier watched him, but he would not assist McVeigh in the actual attack. McVeigh tried to convince Fortier to help him by telling him to think of the victims as stormtroopers from the movie Star Wars, individually innocent, but guilty as a group because they worked for an evil empire. Terry Nichols told McVeigh in March 1995 that he wanted to remove himself from the attack plan. McVeigh allegedly gained assistance from other anti-government activists to complete the planning. There are many theories about this. No one other than McVeigh, Nichols, and Fortier were convicted of anything. But again, there are many theories around possible help that McVeigh received. April 16, 1995, Easter Sunday, McVeigh, Nichols, and allegedly one other person, the infamous John Doe No. 2, drove to Oklahoma City. McVeigh leaves his getaway car, a 1977 Mercury Grand Marquis, in a lot near the Murrah building. April 18, 1995, McVeigh and possibly others mixed the components for an explosive and placed the barrels in a Ryder rental truck. There are a number of different theories about this. It's hard to know if he had help with this or not. It seems certainly possible that Nichols helped him do this. April 19, 1995, exactly 2 years after the Waco tragedy, McVeigh parks the Ryder truck in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. The explosion occurred at 9:02 a.m., killing 168 people, 19 of whom were children. Over 600 people were injured in that attack. McVeigh is pulled over 80 minutes later. He had a missing license plate on that Grand Marquis. He was arrested for 4 misdemeanor charges, including concealing a weapon without a permit. The authorities figured out that McVeigh and Nichols were involved. They went to the jail to pick up McVeigh, and Nichols turned himself in. Fortier and his wife Lori cooperated with the federal authorities and testified before a grand jury. This takes us to March 31, 1997. We see that jury selection starts in McVeigh's trial. Opening statements start on April 24, 1997. The government built a fairly strong case against McVeigh. Just a few examples here. Physical evidence tied him to the crime. He had told many people how much he hated the government. He had told somebody he wanted to take violent action against the government on April 19. There was a witness that saw him rent the Ryder truck used in the attack. He had earplugs in his car. And of course, Michael Fortier testified he saw McVeigh prepare for the attack. McVeigh's defense was fairly weak. There were no witnesses that put McVeigh at the Murrah building at 9 a.m. on April 19, and the investigation was haphazard, but the defense did not have a single alibi witness. McVeigh was found guilty on 11 counts on June 2, 1997. This included use of a weapon of mass destruction and conspiracy to use such a weapon. June 13, 1997, the jury voted for the death penalty for McVeigh. Later, we see that Terry Nichols was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole because he was found guilty of conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction, and Michael Fortier is sentenced to 12 years in prison for not warning authorities about the attack. December 13, 2000, McVeigh files an affidavit to drop all of his appeals, so he wanted to go straight to the death penalty. June 11, 2004, McVeigh, 33 years old this time, is executed. August 9, 2004. Terry Nichols is tried and convicted at the state level. He is sentenced to 161 consecutive life sentences. So he had the life sentence without the possibility of parole already, and then he ended up with another 161 life sentences. January 20, 2006, Michael Fortier is released from prison after serving just 10.5 years. Lori, his wife, was given immunity, even though she knew about the plan and helped McVeigh make the fake driver's license he used to rent the truck. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors. A mental health professional who interviewed McVeigh claimed that McVeigh suffered from depression, obsessive-compulsive traits, and he said McVeigh had experienced at least one severe panic attack. McVeigh's behavior seems to align with unusual personality characteristics and perhaps delusional thinking. McVeigh's IQ was somewhere between 120 and 129, so he was exceptionally intelligent, yet he didn't have much in the way of corresponding academic achievement. Looking at his personality profile using the 5-factor model, I remember the 5 factors through the acronym OCEAN: openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So starting with openness, here we see both high and low scores on various facets. We see that he is highly invested in fantasy, which would indicate a high level of openness, but he also has rigid thinking. In terms of conscientiousness, his score would likely be high. He was obsessed with cleanliness and order and self-sufficient. His behavior aligns with low extroversion. He was socially awkward, shy, and thought of as a loner. He had low agreeableness, particularly low on the facet of trust. So he had a lot of distrust for the government and other institutions. Moving to the last trait, which is neuroticism, here we see high scores and low scores on various facets. He does not give in easily to temptation, so that would indicate low neuroticism, but he also had difficulty controlling anger, feelings of depression, and feelings of anxiety. So, putting it all together, he was probably a little bit higher than average on neuroticism. Next, I'll look at his relational problem with women. Many killers who are men have dysfunction relating to women. It's something we see with the majority of serial killers, for example. McVeigh had felt like his mother abandoned him. The anxiety caused by that experience led to a lack of security and an interest in survivalism, like I talked about before. He didn't want to depend on other people. Other people would only betray him. He had no success romantically. He was nervous around women. He was repeatedly rejected by potential romantic interests. When he did talk to women, he would talk about firearms, and he would complain how the government was trying to wipe out all the citizens. He would have made an interesting contestant on the dating game. It would have been like the dating game Apocalypse edition. Eventually, he grew angry because of these rejections. So in a way, the rejections became channeled into conspiratorial thinking. The rage he experienced with the government, in one sense, was really directed at women. Using this theory, he couldn't understand why he was rejected, and he couldn't accept that he was the reason for the rejections. So he was thinking it must have been a conspiracy. The trick here is that he didn't believe that women were conspiring against him. Again, the malicious intent was transferred over to the government. In this way, his crimes may have actually been about sexual domination, just like we see with many killers. I also want to talk a little here about his level of paranoia. He seemed to center on the idea of an evil government and again endorsed many conspiracy theories involving the government. He may have been personally afraid of government agents. For example, we see at one point he says that he was being tracked with a microchip that the U.S. Army implanted in his body. He also seemed to be afraid of this idea that U.S. citizens in general would lose their freedom or be wiped out by the government. In his mind, he became a visionary who could see threats that normal people could not see. This is a hallmark of conspiratorial thinking, the idea that the individual has some knowledge that other people simply won't accept or would not understand. In this sense, he developed a sense of purpose. He was there to protect himself and others from the forces of evil, and it became his job to exact revenge on these forces. The date of April 19 was selected specifically because it was the anniversary of the Waco tragedy, and it marked the beginning of the American Revolution in 1775. McVeigh's favorite movie was the 1984 film Red Dawn, which seemed to align with his beliefs quite well. We see the Soviet invasion of an unprepared United States. The enemy talks about using gun registration forms to identify and disarm American citizens, and a high school quarterback leads this assault against the enemy. It's like McVeigh pictured himself as that hero figure. We know when he was 11, his mother left, and he withdrew to comic books and would fantasize about himself being a hero. Eventually, he would identify as what he referred to as the ultimate warrior. It would seem that McVeigh's behaviors align with symptoms from schizotypal personality disorder, specifically ideas of reference, odd beliefs, paranoid ideation, inappropriate or constricted affect, and excessive social anxiety. McVeigh probably did not have true delusions, like we might see with schizophrenia, for example. His behaviors were also consistent with a few characteristics of narcissism, like believing oneself to be special or unique, and having a lack of empathy. We also see features from obsessive-compulsive personality, like being excessively devoted to rules and order. All this taken together really explains how he was able to commit this attack. He was driven by rage. His high conscientiousness allowed him to follow through with a complex plan. His lack of empathy removed the human component. His narcissism led to him wanting to be caught, like he was driving that Grand Marquis with no license plate, and when the officer approached the car, he didn't resist, even though he was armed. He felt justified in his own actions. He never accepted responsibility. He never had remorse. In his mind, he did what was necessary. He was well satisfied and proud with his revenge. He was the bullied, rejected, and paranoid, vulnerable narcissist who lashed out against society. I know whenever I talk about controversial cases, there will be a variety of opinions. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate and interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.